All right, welcome back, guys. Today I am so excited to bring you another ADHD coach. We actually met. So this is Stephanie. Can you say your last name, Stephanie? I don't want to mess it up.
McKeon.
McKeon.
McKeon. Yeah.
And she told a cute little thing like, imagine putting your key in the door. And I'm like, oh, that's a great way to remember it. So we met in this wonderful group that Jessica Blake put together with all life coach school certified coaches. And I was in there for a while, and then I saw Stephanie pop in, and we can go in there and we can schedule coaching with each other. So it's this great service. We all have kind of, we're all unique and special, but we all have kind of that same basis philosophy, being trained in the same certification. So that's wonderful. But when I saw another ADHD coach pop in, I got so excited because I love talking to ADHD coaches certified through the Life Coach School. And the reason for that is I always tell people in consultations when they get on a consultation with me to work together one-on-one or join the group that I have, I always tell them like, we as ADHD coaches, and Stephanie might explain this a little bit different, but what I say is we have like two different areas. We have the executive function skills that we're working on and the ways that we're working on that. And I say like there's habits, structures, and routines to work on that. And then there's tools. And we are trying out lots of different tools to basically build you your own little toolbox of things you can go to when you're having challenges and to help build those things up. And it sounds like a great idea to like make these changes. And then you start to make them and you've noticed like you'll go a day, you'll go 2 days, maybe a week, and then you're like, this is terrible. And it's because you're working against your brain's priorities, which is to keep you safe, conserve energy, then it does that by keeping everything the same, even if what the same is doesn't really work for you. And it's going to seek pleasure and avoid pain. All right. So what Stephanie and I have that these other ADHD coaches, when you search on the internet, don't, is we have this other side, which is the mind management side. And that is that there's a circumstance, you have a thought about it, it makes you feel a certain way, and then you take or don't take certain actions, and then you get the results that you get in your life. And it's true for everything. And some coaches explain it in different ways. Some coaches explain it as the model. Some coaches will help you. I know like Corinne Crabtree calls it the think, feel, do cycle. And it's really all the same thing. You'll read it in books. It's not something that was made up through the life coach school. It's just the facts of life. Our thoughts create our feelings. And so we have that piece and we're able to help people so much more effectively because we have both. But at this point, I want to let Stephanie introduce herself and just tell a little bit about exactly who you work with and just a little bit about yourself. That would be great.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I work primarily with adult ADHDers who have anxiety and perfectionism. Those are kind of the two main things. Some people pleasing also. I love what I do ever since I realized that I wanted to work with other people with ADHD. It just felt so right and so natural. I have severe ADHD. When I got diagnosed, my doctor said, "You scored very high. You're really ADHD."
You got an A in something you don't want to get an A
Exactly.
in.
Yeah. I didn't want to score high in this one. Thank you, doctor. So I think it was such a natural transition for me to start working with people who have dealt with the same things that I dealt with and kind of bring them along the journey to being acceptant to accepting your ADHD
Sounds good.
self
Sounds good to me.
rather than kind of pushing up against it and being resistant, because that just doesn't help yourself to do that. It really, you got to get to a place of acceptance so that you can kind of be who you actually are.
I love that. So something that I was curious about, and if you had been certified before me and like 5 years ago, I would have been your ideal client. I was dealing with severe anxiety. I was trying to be a recovering perfectionist, but every time I would say I was that, I was like, but you still are. And it does still pop up. I don't think we ever get rid of it entirely, but you can get to a place where you just feel so much better. But one thing I was curious of, and I felt like you would be the perfect person to ask this, is why do you think so many of us with ADHD also suffer from perfectionism?
What I find with myself even and the people that I work with is that we're all concerned about looking as best as we can, looking like we have our stuff together. There's a lot of shame in being different than everybody else and having to work harder than everybody else just to achieve the same results. There's a lot of masking. We're having to work so extra hard just to match what everybody around us is doing. And we're so afraid of being found out, being uncovered for who we actually are. And so it's all a ploy to do what's expected of us and be who we're expected to be so that we're not seen as how we really are.
Yeah. So that reminds me of a story. This is our second recording, guys. And so I told the story before, but that is something I've said my whole life. I feel like I have to work 10 times harder than everybody else. to get like the same results they're getting. And I told the story of being in PE class. And we had this wonderful teacher. Her name was Miss Donaghy. She would do all kinds of fun stuff. And she was teaching us like this dance routine. And like she showed it to us, and then it was like time to go through it, and they were counting, and I was having a hard time counting the 8 counts. And so I'm like already failing. And then she like takes us through it once. And some people got it. Some people were like on it. And then she took us through it again. And then like half the class got it. And then she took us through it again. And it seemed like everybody except me and one other girl got it. And I'm like, something's wrong with me. Like, I don't know if it was only in that area, I would be like, well, you're just not a great dancer,
Yeah.
like, but it's not just in that area. It was in every area. I struggled so much with like math in high school. And then when I got to college, and this is how I know it's the ADHD, because I struggled to understand basic algebra. Geometry was terrible for me, but I got good grades. Like I made it work. But when I got to college and took college algebra and taught myself, I would go to class, then I would come home with the book and then the answer key and teach myself in my own way. Then I got an A plus. I got the highest grade in the class. And in fact, there was one time that my professor actually got mad at me because he was trying to work out the problem on the board. And in true ADHD fashion, I had figured out this completely different way to do it.
Yeah.
And he kept trying to work it out, and he was getting frustrated. And I'm like, actually, that's incorrect. And he knew it wasn't right because he knew the answer, and he knew he wasn't coming to the solution. And I'm like, I raised my hand again. I'm like, if you just did this, it'll come out to the right answer. And he's frustrated, and he's like erasing it and starting over. And I'm like, but no, you don't understand. If you just do this, you'll get the right answer. And finally he let me come up to the front of the class, which I'm like introvert, shy,
Oh,
but I'm like, okay, let's do it. And so I go up to the front of the class, and you have to understand, in this college class, I live in a small town. My high school Spanish teacher is sitting next to me taking this class. His wife is
oh,
behind him. Like there are grown adults in this room. And I'm pretty young. Um, when I go up and I work it out, and he's upset because that's not the way the book said to do it.
right.
And so like it's that thinking outside the box that's so beautiful that we have with ADHD. And like in high school, obviously they just weren't teaching me in a way that my brain could learn. It wasn't that I couldn't learn. It wasn't that in college my brain was fully developed at this point. It doesn't develop fully until we're like 24 years old.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it wasn't like I got more executive function skill or better working memory or anything like that. It just, I needed to teach myself in the way that worked. But Stephanie had this hilarious story about ballet class. Can you tell them that story?
Yes, absolutely. And one thing that I wanted to say before telling that story is um, what you experienced with the algebra is so, I think, encompassing of ADHD people. We're so resourceful and innovative in our own way, as long as we allow ourselves to not be put into the box that society, doing it in a totally different way, which it's so true. And I love that you were able to do that. So my ballet story, and I told Mandy before we started recording that we had done our first recording, and then I talked to my mom, and she said, "Oh no, there was more to that story." So when I was, gosh, I was probably 5 or 6 years old, severe ADHD kid, lots of energy. My parents put me in ballet class, and I don't know how long I was in ballet class for, but not a very long time when the teacher very nicely told my mom, maybe I should try something else because all I wanted to do was talk and I wanted to make friends. I was very sociable. I did not care about the ballet. So my mom had to come get me and we had to find something else to do. And at some other point, probably even just a few years later, I went and did gymnastics, same outcome. Stephanie's really good at making friends. She's not really getting the gymnastics part of this. So I was kicked out. We like to tease that Stephanie was kicked out of ballet for being too nice and not wanting to pay attention.
So it's funny now, right? And good thing you probably didn't understand what was happening at the time. You're
Yeah.
just like, I guess I'm not doing ballet anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so in true ADHD fashion is the way I always like to put it. I have this coaching business that I've built, right? Where I work with clients one-on-one, and I have the ADHD Academy where I work with people in groups, and there's courses in there, and like group coaching several days a week. And I have a gym. That's another business that I have. And I have 3 kids, one living out on his own, 2 still at home. And my husband manages 2 companies. So like he's not there a lot to like help with these other things. In fact, my coaching business, he has no clue he's like, great, good for you. I don't understand what you're doing. I'm like, I just learned to do this journey in MailChimp so that emails come out automatically. And he's like, I don't understand that, but okay, good job. But Stephanie also is like, has many irons in the fire.
Yeah, I've learned very early on that life cannot be boring. I have to be doing lots of things all the time or I get restless. It was true in college. I had upwards of, at one point, like 6 different part-time jobs in addition to school full time and, social, all of the other things. But when I was going through certification, I was actually pregnant at the time, was already pregnant before I decided to go to certification. And after the first meeting that we had, I was like, oh, I'm in probably way over my head with all of these things that I'm juggling. But it's in, like you said, in true ADHD fashion, I just can't do only one thing. It's my brain just can't.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned jobs because when I was in high school, I went through I'm sorry. Lifeguard certification is what I was trying to say. I went through lifeguard certification and got hired on as a lifeguard at the pool at the high school and wasn't a strong swimmer, but was like dedicated. And so like I made it work. And I was doing that job for like a couple years. And at one point, like Stephanie's talking about, I was not 6 jobs, but I was working as a lifeguard at the pool during the day in the heat, in the sun, in the desert. So imagine that. And then I got hired on at a private pool where I worked right after I got done with the high school pool. So I'd go in the morning at the high school pool till like I think about 2 o'clock. And then I'd go open the other pool and I'd stay there till 6. And I was the only lifeguard at the private pool. Whereas at the first pool, I got breaks, we rotated, things like that. And then I would come home, I would sleep for a couple hours, and then I would go in for the graveyard shift at McDonald's. And I was the drive-through girl. And there's a reason. It's because with my ADHD brain, I was able to like do a bunch of things at once. And maybe part of that's just being female too. But I would be like cleaning tables out in the lobby and have the headset on for the drive-through, take like 2 orders, go back to the register, put the orders in. And it's like, so not all of us have severe working memory issues, like when we're motivated and when we're, like staying busy, I guess is what it
Yeah.
was. And then when I got bored with that, I taught myself the grill. And then once I learned to, and this is when they actually cooked the things at McDonald's now, they like microwave most of them. But I learned the grill, had the guys, and they'd only let the guys work the grill in our town. I don't know why, it was weird. But had the guys teach me the grill. And then I taught all the girls the grill that wanted to learn the grill.
Good for
So
you.
it's just funny how our brains work. But all that to be said, I got this award at lifeguarding at the end of the year. We all got awards, and mine had a candle burnt at both ends. And it wasn't that I was doing all these things because of the money. Like, sure, I was going to be going to college and I needed some money, but it wasn't really about that. It was just about like keeping my brain busy. And especially at that time in my life, I just had so much energy and I'm hyperactive. So those of you that are inattentive, you may not exactly relate to this. You have all the energy here, right? Well, hyperactives, we have all the energy here and here. And
Yep.
so I like loved to run. I sometimes like my cousin and I would just be weirdos and like run around like the church building if we had meetings that day. And I'm like, now I look back and I'm like, that's weird. That's weird to just go randomly running around the building for no reason. And but it's the ADHD. It's just being
Yeah.
hyperactive. So hopefully that's relatable to someone. But yeah, did you have anything to add, Stephanie?
Well, yeah. So you talking about, and I think we talked about this previously, but the candle with both ends burning, we had talked about ADHD burnout in our last
Mhm.
discussion. And I think that it all kind of ties in with the perfectionism and trying to do so many things to kind of just keep up with everybody around us. I didn't even realize that this was a true pattern for me, but I will go and go and go because I think there's all these things that I need to do. And I'm getting better at this now with my diagnosis and kind of catching it before it gets too bad where I'm burning myself out. But I think when we do all of the things constantly and trying to keep up with everybody around us without taking care of ourselves, that ADHD burnout is so common and people just don't even realize that that's what's going on is we just have to slow down for a minute, which is very hard for us, but we
Yes.
just have to do the things that take care of ourselves and not be trying to do all the things just so we can be okay with the people around us.
Yeah, and that takes me to something that I do with my clients all the time. If they tell me they're going to do a big project, and I know this, I've learned this from like life experience, you guys. They tell me they're going to do a big project. For example, I had a client just recently, she was going to clean her 6-year-old son's room who has ADHD, and that's why she was going to clean it. As parents, we're like, let's teach our kids to do these things themselves. He has ADHD, you guys. Like, He's going to go in there and start to pick up something and then play Legos and then play with the next thing he finds. I know I have one with ADHD too. And so I know how this works. Like you have to like either go in with them or just do it yourself. And so she was going to go and do it herself. And she sent me a picture of the room. And I'm like, okay, how are we going to do this without exhausting ourselves? And that's always my question for all my clients, whether they're starting a business or doing a big project or organizing a room or, whatever it is. When I know it's going to take a lot of hours, I'm like, what's the plan? Because otherwise, what they're going to do is they're going to go in, just like I always did before I figured this out, taking care of myself, right? They're going to go in and they're going to go, okay, I'm going. I'm motivated. I can't lose this. I'm just going to keep going until it's done. And then by like hour 4, they're sweaty and tired, but they've not eaten or drank anything or rested. And now they're going to go another 4 hours until it's done. And so we talked about this and she's like, okay, I'm going to take breaks I think she said every hour. I don't recall exactly. And I'm going to make sure that I, get some lunch. And she like knew the drill. She's been with me for a long time. And I said, great. And then I went out to dinner that night with my husband and I get a text and it's a before and after of this room. And it is an unbelievable difference. And I think she even said in the text, and I didn't exhaust myself. And so I just want you guys to watch for that. One thing also I like to do with clients, and Stephanie probably has some tools that she can offer here too, but I really like to decide what's enough in things that just can just go on and on. And where I discovered this was in the other business. I always point over here because if you were in my town and you drove a straight line right there, that's where it would be. In my other business with the gym, I was running the office for many years, for like 2 or 3 years of us owning it. I was the only one running the office and I could work all day long. There's always work to do. And I noticed I would like walk in the back gate. Our gym has kind of like a backyard with like hammers and tires and things like that and a punching bag. And so I'd walk in the back gate and then I'd walk into the back side of my office and I would just like feel heavy all of a sudden. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like this business has been profitable day one. The clients are amazing. We've remodeled it to like just be something that we just love. We think it's so much fun. Like there's nothing bad. There's no downside. Like, of course, like there's some days you'd rather do something else than go into an office, but I'm like, this doesn't make sense that I feel this way. And I'd gotten some coaching on it. And one of the coaches had helped me realize, like, well, how do you know when you're done? And I'm like, oh, I have no plan for when I'm done. Like, it's like laundry or dishes or cleaning your house. Like, you could go all day. And I was like, okay. And so I walked in that day and my husband happened to be there. He was sitting across from me and I'm like, help me talk through this and let's decide all the things that need to be done in a day. And then I'm done. If I want to do more, great. If not, I've completed this list. So we made a list like this big and put it on a Post-it. And I won't bore you with the things on the list, but they were very basic. And after that day, I enjoyed coming into the office. It was like, oh, my brain never like got to have that dopamine hit of like, you did a good job. You're finished. You completed the project. And once I had that, it was like, oh, this feels so much better. It feels so good. And so I'm always working with my clients. And I want those of you watching this to think about that. Like, what in your life could just go on forever? And you could, like, if you don't make a stopping point, you're never done. Because I know also being a perfectionist and having ADHD, when I would work jobs, I would go over and beyond. Like, I was a substitute teacher, like a full-time sub over in Arizona. And I say over in Arizona, it's 2 miles away, you guys. It's just right there. I'm in California, but Arizona is right there. And so I full-time subbed in Arizona and I would stay until 6 o'clock at night grading papers for a classroom that was not mine. And it's just because I didn't have like that off switch once I was on. But Stephanie, yeah, what kind of tools do you have or what thoughts did you get from that?
Yeah, you could probably see me writing several things down because I was like, "Ooh, I have things I want to say." So one of the things what you were talking about with you were feeling anxious going into the office, and you were like, "But I really like this. Why am I feeling anxious?" I had a client who one time, well, I've worked with several people who kind of almost feel disconnected with their emotions. It's almost like we're not going to deal with those things because it's going to prevent me from getting the things done that I need to get done. And one of my clients, oh, what did she say? She said, emotions are inconvenient. And
Mm,
I just thought that's so true for us people with ADHD in particular. I think because, we, like you said, we never turn off. My brain's always going. Your brain's always going. The ADHD brain, it just doesn't stop. And it's very hard to take a break to address those emotions. One of the things that I worked with my clients is just, especially those that are feeling disconnected, is when you're feeling a particular way, what are you feeling in your body? Where is it? Is it faster? Is it slow? Because sometimes it's like, is this anxiety? Is this, um, I can't think of another emotion. Is this excitement? Is it
I'm the
frustration?
feelings wheel.
You know what? The feelings wheel is just perfection. I love it so much. I should get a physical one. I always have one up.
I should let people like actually see this. Like you can't see the words on it. But the reason I have this, like to Stephanie's point, like feeling so disconnected from your emotions, when I first started getting coached, they're like, well, how does that thought make you feel? And I'm like, I don't
No.
know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand the question. And because my feelings vocabulary was basically like sad, mad, happy,
Yeah.
like anxious,
Yeah.
overwhelmed. Anyway,
Exactly. So the feelings wheel is just wonderful, and it has helped me in my own self-coaching and with clients so much. So anybody who is doing any kind of coaching or any kind of feelings work, even just Google the emotions wheel. It is incredible. So I feel just let me pause because I just was going. The disconnection from our emotions, definitely something that I handle with my clients. And then what you were saying with the list that your husband helped you put together of like, if nothing else, I'm going to do these things. And if I want to be done, I can be done. This is not something that I have yet implemented, but I've thought about it doing like an energy menu. So you have like
yes.
on the days that I'm super low energy, the basics, like if I get nothing else done, these are the things I'm going to do, whether that's, in house cleaning or just tidying or brushing my teeth or whatever. When I have like my most normal amount of energy, these things are high energy. These are, and you add the things from the first list to all of them, but then you add more. And I think that's very useful for ADHD people because you can pick which menu you're going to do based on how you feel instead of it being always that the high energy menu when that's not realistic because we find our energy it's a roller coaster from day to day. And so I've not implemented that and I've not brought it up with any clients. I've just seen it like on TikTok and places like that. But I think that's a very useful tactic to anybody who experiences those type of energy fluctuations.
Yeah, and I do this with clients, and it's dependent on the client what we call it, because they'll be having different issues. So there can be a lot of comorbid issues with ADHD. So sometimes I'll have clients that have like chronic pain. Sometimes I'll have clients that are maybe in like a stage, not that this is a comorbid, but like how do you say it?
Comorbidity.
Yeah, there you go. They might be in like moving into menopause, and so their energy is a little bit lower. Their hormones are kind of off. I had one client that we put together a list. Found out later that it was because her vitamin D and her iron was very low, and her medication she was on were lowering her blood pressure to a point that it was just way too low, and so she was having energy problems all the time. And so dependent on the client is dependent what I call it, but we put together a list of what they can do on those days that they're exhausted. I have a list personally because there are some days like I just maybe don't get a good night's sleep. And so I have a list of like really kind of, I like to call them like brain dead activities that I can do, those things that it's not really useful to do like when you're on, like maybe clearing up my desktop on my computer or organizing some files or just cleaning my desk. But when I'm really, really exhausted, what I like to do, and I'm glad that we brought this up because we're sitting here talking about how, how we're doing so many things and about how energetic we are. But honestly, that's not how a lot of my clients come to me. A lot of my clients come to me overwhelmed and exhausted, and they just want to know how to get out of bed or how to get off the couch or, those kind of things. And so I'm glad we talked about this because we're in a different space, right? We're kind of like back to when we were kids because we've worked through a lot of the problems. Not to say that we don't have problems, we do, and we know how to work on them and we get coached on them. But we've worked through a lot of this stuff so that we are back to the energy state, right? That we were in when we
Yes.
were kids before we got kind of broken down from life from not fitting into the proper box because of our ADHD. But when I have my really like exhausted days is what I would call them, I just like to ask myself a simple question instead of like referring to the list sometimes. Sometimes I'll just ask myself, like, what can I do? And oftentimes it's like, okay, I can get up and I can put some laundry in. And then it's like, okay. And then I usually like go rest. And I'll ask myself again, what can I do? I'm like, I can put some fish on a pan and salt and pepper it and put it in the oven. And I can pull out a salad from the fridge because I always like make a big salad. I really need to do like a video about all my food hacks because I also have a lot of clients coming to me going, I don't like to cook, And I do like to cook, but I have these things that make it simple for myself. I make a big salad every week. I make a big batch of scrambled eggs every week. And that's like keeping it simple. I have a lot of clients that have a hard time feeding themselves. So that's something we should touch on in the future. I won't go that far down that path, but just going back to that question of like, what can I do when maybe even you're just emotionally feeling like I'm so overwhelmed, there's nothing I can do, or I'm so anxious, I'm frozen, or I'm depressed, or I'm just so tired. Just ask yourself that question, like, what is one small thing I can do? And once you put yourself into motion, and I'm not saying on those days I go and cook dinner and then I'm like fixed. Absolutely not. I probably go cook dinner, say, good job, and go lay down and watch Netflix. Like, but at least I did something. You wrote
Right.
down
Well,
something, Stephanie. Yeah.
yeah. Well, to your point too, I think not only did you do something, but you also did something nutritious for yourself that's going to aid you in your recovery and feeling better, like long term, instead of ordering DoorDash or getting a frozen meal, because it's so easy. And a lot of us ADHD people are so not great at planning ahead for meals and all of those things. So it's kind of like, what can I just do right now that's going to be quick and easy? But even if you can put some fish on a pan, salt and pepper it, cook it, you're feeding your body, you're getting some nutrition that's really going to help you in the long term. So
Yeah.
I think that's great. That's great advice. Let's see. Did I write down? Oh, I just wrote down your question of what can I do today? I think that's such a great question because, again, to the shame that a lot of us feel is like, even if you have a list of things on your low energy day, if you don't get to all of those things, you might feel like beating yourself up because, oh, I didn't do even the bare minimum of the things that I said I was going to do or was going to do. And so giving yourself the freedom and the grace really to be, what can I do? Okay, well, I can do these things, and that's what I'm going to do instead of this pre-made list that is going to create shame within myself for no reason, really, but that's what we do.
Yeah. And the list, the energy list that Stephanie's talking about, like that's just like I think you mentioned a menu. It is. It's really like a menu that you can choose from, but you don't have to do any of those things. So that's not anything like I just want to make that clear so people don't confuse it with like maybe a to-do list
Mhm.
where and I have this whole thing I work with my clients on with list shame because it's not just list shame, it's also list anxiety. But I have what I call a now not now list. And what that is one, it gets everything out of your brain. So everything that you're like, I should do this, I should learn this. I need to get back to this person. I should talk to my parents more. I should, what all these things that your brain's like, you should do these things. Those all go down on a list. And you kind of hide this list from yourself. In my planner, what I do is I put my goals for the year in front of this list. And then I put a little half sheet list in my planner. And on that half sheet list, that's my now list. So now list means this is stuff that happens today. And I go to my not now list and I go, okay, does any of this matter today? And that gets rid of that whole anxiety because you're like, it's just today. We got our blinders on. It's only today we're worried about. We're not planning our week. We're not doing any of that, just today. And it's like, okay, well, these 5 things matter today. And you might find out you're wrong. And then what I do, and I'm going to do a whole video on how I plan, but then what I do is take those 5 things and plug them into the calendar. Do they fit? If they don't fit, guess what? I'm wrong. That doesn't actually matter today because I don't have enough time in the day and it can go on to tomorrow. And it helps you prioritize too, because you're like, oh, I thought this was more important, but actually this thing was more important. So I was also doing something right before the call that a lot of us with ADHD do. And I was prepping. Remember, I make those scrambled eggs. So I was like making scrambled eggs. I was boiling some eggs. I was doing some food prep. And there was other things to be done. And I knew I had a call with Stephanie and I was eating. And I knew I had a call with Stephanie in like 4 minutes. And my brain was like, you can do one more thing. And I did one more thing. And it's like, you can do one more thing. And I'm like, you cannot do one more thing. And then I got on with Stephanie and I'm like, I had to think about why I was doing that. And I'm like, oh, I've not planned my day yet. So my brain is just going all directions instead of being directed and understanding like how much time I have for things. So that's also like a really good tip.
Yeah, what you were saying with your to-do list and then putting it on your calendar, I think that's such a great tool because time blindness, I know is not something that everybody with ADHD experiences, but mine is really bad. Yours too. And so I'll take a day off of work and I'll say, well, I'm going to do all these 9 things. And to me, the list of 9 things, that might be excessive, a list of 4 things. And I say, oh, there's only 4 things on my to-do list. I can certainly do all of those things today, not taking into consideration, this is a 45-minute task. This is a 4-hour task. It's just it's unrealistic. We kind of get into those modes of, well, I can do all of those things. It's totally fine. And then the day's getting later and later and later, and we've only done two of the things. So I love that method. I'm gonna start trying to do the now, not now list. I think that will really help me too. So thank you for
I have
sharing.
I have a video training on it. It's like the tool that will get rid of your overwhelm or something like that. There's a whole video on it. But the time awareness it's actually not a problem for me now the way it used to be. And you can really train your time awareness. Now and it's been within the past year that I've really like honed in on this. But now, like when I'm cooking something, I know like my brain's like, there's a minute left. And I go and I check and there's a minute left. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like I have not
Wow.
had that my whole life. But ways I work with clients to train their time awareness is like we'll do things like you guys can see that. I'll have them use visual timers. I will have them time, excuse me, time themselves on how long things take. For example, like the dishes, the laundry, cleaning the bathroom, tasks at work. I will have them time all of those things. And sometimes we find out things take less time, and sometimes we find out they take more time. And that's just good information because what it does is it gets rid of one, if you're thinking things take forever. I used to hate to do the dishes and I would procrastinate and I would put it off. And now I'm like, that was silly. That was a waste of like a good 10 years of making dishes miserable. And it was the same thing with the laundry. But in my mind, I was like, that's going to take forever. And so I timed it and actually found this like basically ADHD coping mechanism like 5 years ago at least. But I'm like, okay, is that true? And then we learned to like ask that in coaching. Is that really
Yep.
true? And so I timed how long it took to do the dishes. And the first time it took like an hour. Okay, that is a long time. It was because they were built up. And then I'm like, okay, let's time it again. Oh, it takes 6 minutes to load the dishwasher and 4 minutes to hand wash what doesn't go in the dishwasher. It takes 10 minutes to do the dishes if you just go ahead and do them. And you stop thinking it's going to take forever, which makes you feel dread, which makes you
Mhm.
not do the dishes and take the
Totally.
action of doing something to avoid doing the dishes, right? And I just remember all the years, because there's so much shame around this as an adult. I remember all the years of like rotten milk or stinky things in the dishes on the counter because I was just thinking it was going to take forever. And this is not everybody's problem. Some of you probably have the dishes completely under control, but I know it is some of you. All right. I know some of you are just like me. And now it's just not a problem. It's just like, oh, there's dishes in the sink. Let's load the dishwasher, wash the dishes. It only takes like 10 minutes. I can go switch the laundry while I'm doing that. The laundry, I remember, and this shows you how long I don't know, Oprah's still on, right? But I don't watch TV anymore. But the laundry used to pile up so bad that I would like take like all day to wash it and then I would dump the loads onto the couch, and there would be this mountain of laundry on the couch. And then I would sit and watch Oprah and fold the laundry. And it was like an hour's thing. It was like it took all day to do it that way. And then I timed it. And I'm like, how long does it really take to do the laundry? Oh, if I just do it every day, and this is not everybody's method, but this is mine. If I just put in a load most days, then it actually takes like 6 minutes to fold it. And it takes like 2 minutes to put it in. And maybe you need to sort it, but I have coped with my ADHD and got a sorter that I labeled darks, whites, towels, bedding, like it's labeled. So I know where everything goes. And so I don't have to sort it more than once. And I just put it in, switch it at some point in the day, fold it right then. Like these are all like things we learn to do for ourselves. But before they were such a problem, but it was just because of our thinking. Like I thought it was going to take forever. If you have ADHD and you're procrastinating on something, it's probably because you think it's going to take forever. It's too big. It's too boring, or you're afraid you don't know how to do it. It's one of those things. You looked like you sparked some ideas for you though, Stephanie.
Yeah, I was gonna say I do something similar. I've not timed myself to see how long something will take, but I'll kind of gamify my chores. And I
Yeah.
know that's something that's very common too, but if I put something in the microwave, like if I'm heating up my coffee or if I'm um I don't know, doing anything else, I will say, okay, I'm gonna set a timer for 2 minutes and I'm gonna do as much as I can of, putting the dishes away or loading the dishwasher or whatever for 2 minutes. And then it's funny because even if I don't finish, and often I do finish because it's a smaller task on purpose, um, you just feel so good and there's like that little dopamine hit because you're like, oh, I did something that I really didn't want to do and I did it quickly. And
Yeah.
I didn't sit in the dread like you were saying that's so common for us. I just did it and I didn't think about it in a thought loop over and over and over all day. I just went and did it. And gosh, the way that that feels is so incredible.
Something that I used to, and I've taught many of my clients this, and it's the same concept, is like, if you feel like your whole house is a mess, I would set a timer for 10 minutes and just pick a room. And then and it's really helped to like switch to something different because then it wasn't boring. And then I was racing against the clock. So it was fun in that way. But I'd set a clock or a timer for 10 minutes, I'd do the kitchen. I'd set a timer for 10 minutes and I'd do something in the living room. Set a timer for 10 minutes and do something in a bedroom, and so on. And so I was switching all around. That kept my brain happy. And then it was only 10 minutes. And then you're so proud of yourself for what you get done in that just small 10 minutes of time. It's crazy. But something I really wanted to talk about. So Stephanie and I both invested in certification for the life coach school. And you guys, this is a serious investment. Like when I went through in 2020, it was not as much of an investment as it was when Stephanie went through in 2022. This is like no joke money, guys. Like it's and especially when you have ADHD and you're like, oh, but I've started things before and like, oh, I don't know. Like, am I gonna follow through? It's an investment to the point that you're like, I will follow through.
Yes.
And I remember like I had been listening to the Life Coach School podcast for, I don't know, 3 to 4 years at this time, and just realizing, and I had joined Self-Coaching Scholars, which is kind of like my ADHD academy where you get group coaching. And you also got 20-minute coaching with like various coaches. And so I was getting coached through these ways, and my ADHD symptoms were improving. And it was because I was bringing them my ADHD problems, and like my life was getting better and I was happier, and like things were just getting better and better. And my husband, and it was like $297 a month for Self-Coaching Scholars. And we were happy to invest in that. And my husband's noticing a difference. And my relationship with my husband was already good, but it was just getting better and better because I'm learning these concepts of like how we think and how we, how it makes us feel and how it makes us take and not take certain actions. And I'm like, at this time, I'm like, I understand the concept logically, but I don't really know how to coach myself yet. I wasn't there yet, but I kept getting coached, and they just kept saying like so many, and they weren't selling the program, you guys, like they don't get anything for me signing up. It's just that they knew that when they got certified as a coach, their life like improved that much more. And I'm not saying you need to go get certified as a coach. This has been our experience. And that's what motivated me though. And I'm like, someday I think I'd really like to be a coach. Someday, someday, right? Because I've looked into how much it costs and it's kind of crazy. And someday. And so we had purchased our gym, and I think we were like in maybe the first year of owning it. And like I said, it was turnkey as far as like profitable day one. And so that made some extra funds, and but not so much that we'd just like drop $18,000 on something, something that kind of had an unknown at the end. So I had just like really felt impressed that I needed to go for it. I needed to go ahead and do certification. And I looked it up, and certification started in less than a month. And it only started at certain times, and then you had to wait until it opened up again. And I remember we were in the gym working out, and my husband was over in the squat rack. I remember this clearly. And I was listening to something and I was looking up the information. And I walked over to him and I said, I want to do certification. $18,000 investment, you guys. And he's a super nice guy. So he's like, oh yeah, yeah, of course. He's heard me talk about it before. He's like, yeah, someday. And I looked at my phone and I looked at him and I'm like, it starts next month. And this investment, you guys, it's not $18,000 at once. At this time, it wasn't. It was like you paid monthly for 6 months. And so what does that come out to? Like 3,000 something a month. And so
Yeah.
I'm telling you guys this all for a reason. And Stephanie's story is a little bit different than mine. It has its own unique twist. But I did it, and I went into it and I'm like, I commit to just show up. Like, and I that is something I tell my clients. Like, just show up. That's all you have to do for coaching. Just show up, and you are going to get what you need out of coaching by just showing up. Now, does that mean you're not going to take action? Of course, you're going to take action. But if you don't show up, you don't know the actions to take. If you don't sign up for the coaching, you don't get the actions. And so I tell all my clients in some form, just show up. And that's what I said to myself. I'm like, you are just going to show up. Your meetings are every Thursday. You're going to show up. They're going to tell you things to do. You're just going to do what they say to do. And that's what I did. And I did really well in certification. I'm really proud of myself of how that went. And that investment, I mean, sitting where I'm sitting now, if it had been $40,000, I would have done it. Like, it was worth it. And Stephanie, why don't you tell your experience? Because yours is kind of funny.
Yes. So I think I mentioned a little bit earlier that I was pregnant when I was doing certification, but it was in January of 2022. I think the program started in April of 2022. But I've always been a fan of Carl Lowenthal. A lot of people in the coaching industry know her. She's a powerhouse. She's incredible. And she was my first introduction into coaching. I backing up, it had only been probably a couple of months before January when I was like, well, let me look into her coach's information, Brooke, just see what else I can learn. Because, us ADHD people, we are like, I want more, give me more. I'm hungry to learn. And so I listened to her podcast, went to her website, and it just happened to be right then she was posting about certification. It was up on the site and all of these things. And it had never crossed my mind before, probably a few weeks before we actually took this action. But
That's so
I had
interesting how our stories are so different. Like I
yeah,
like simmered for years and you're like months, like
yeah,
not even months,
maybe,
weeks.
maybe. And I, at that time, was not super familiar with Brooke. I just was kind of the opinion that, like, if I can learn to regulate my emotions, like I've learned from Kara, oh my gosh, what important, valuable information that would be. And that was kind of all I was hoping to get out of it at that time, not knowing what I wanted to do as far as being a coach, starting a business. Like I said, whoop, like I'd said before, I kind of go into things before I know the whole map, and then I kind of figure it out as I go, which a lot of us do. It's a very ADHD. But let's see. So I was pregnant, went on the website, looked to see how much it costs, just to get an idea, and I totally misread the information. I thought that it said $3,000, and I said $3,000. Okay, that's not crazy. We'll go talk to my husband, see what he thinks. And he said, well, absolutely. If that's something that you want to do, let's just go ahead and do it. And so there I was, ready to go ahead and pay for it. And no, just kidding. It was, let's see, 6 months of $3,000. Wait, 7 months, 7 months of $3,000. And I said, well, I misread that entirely, which is honestly not uncommon for me in my very severely ADHD brain. And so it took a lot longer because truth be told, if I would have read it correctly, the price beforehand, I would not have talked to my husband about it. We had a baby on the way. We had all these other things going on. We were trying to pay off debt and just kind of get in a better place financially for this coming child. And so I sat in it and thought about it. And he, of course, my husband is very logical, and he's like, well, why don't you just wait? We'll save up the money over the next couple of years, and then you can go in a couple of years. And I told him, it feels really important to me to do it now, knowing that we have a daughter coming where I need to be the best mother that I can be. And I want to be able to model those things for her about regulating our emotions and dealing with things, having coping mechanisms and all of those things before she's 3 years old or however old she would be at the time. And so it was really important to me to learn all of the emotional maturity of it, which is something that Brooke goes all into, emotional maturity. And we ended up, we swung it, we did it. And it honestly, even though I gave birth during certification and was going through the newborn stage, and, I was so grateful to have the support of my fellow coaches that were in certification with me, I think I would have had a very different experience had I not been in that place of working on my emotions. Because, I mean, you've been there, all of the things that come up as a new mom and the mom guilt of different things and just the hormones and all the things. Gosh, you could just have a whole podcast just on that. But it was a totally different experience than if I would have waited and would have learned those things later in life, or later in her life, really.
Yeah, I had 3 kids and learned those things later in life. You guys,
Yeah.
I came from a family where they yelled, and I yelled as a mom, like, "Oh, you're not listening? Let me say it louder." And
Yeah.
it's so damaging. And it was actually before certification that I figured this out, just through diving into these principles about, regulating your emotions and things like that, and about the model and our thoughts create our feelings. And it all like came to me, and I don't know how old my kids were at this time, but I've not yelled for like many years. And it's very, very, very rare. Um, especially at them. Like I might yell like for them to come help me with something or
Mhm.
something like this, but this was like yelling at them. And what I had learned from learning these concepts of like our thoughts create our feelings, and then I was reacting, right, with yelling. And I thought through the instance like after it happened, and I'm like, why did you do that? Not in a judgmental way, just in a like being curious about it. Like when you question yourself in a judgmental way, it just shuts everything down. You're just shaming yourself, and it just doesn't work. But in coaching, we teach and we have learned to just get curious about your thoughts. And so I looked at that situation, and oftentimes it was like I was homeschooling, right? I homeschooled for like 12 years. And my son, the oldest, was so smart about like doing the bare minimum. Like he was an A+ student when he chose to go to school, but he's too smart because he would figure out what is the very least I can do to like get this done. And to me, that like I felt fear. My fear was you're not going to turn into a functioning adult if you don't learn how to do these things. And that's just one example. It was always something like that, or it was, I just started to realize in every instance that it happened, I'm scared. Oh, I'm scared.
Hmm.
I'm feeling fear and I'm reacting with yelling. And that was like a light switch, you guys. Like we talk about emotional regulation, like the things that we teach you and the things that we've learned, sometimes the way it helps your emotional regulation is you're like, I didn't see the thought, feeling, action loop that was going on because it was just happening so fast, I couldn't catch it. And that's what would happen when I would yell. I would instantly regret it. I'd be so upset that I did it. And I'd see that they're scared or they're upset or they're whatever. It was never a good result. And just by learning, like, okay, I'm thinking this, it's causing fear and I'm yelling. Like it allowed me to just go, okay, let's just work on our thoughts about the situation. You don't know that they're not going to turn into functioning human beings if they only do the bare minimum on their math. You don't know that for a fact. You don't know that by your kids being on the computer a lot, they're going to have some terrible problems. Like you don't know that for a fact. And so this just like dispelled a lot of the emotional regulation problems. I also had these emotional regulation problems in my relationship. Like I would go to like anger like that. Like it was just so quick and my impulse control wasn't there. I tell a funny story about like a chicken that I've told in other videos. I'll tell it real fast. So we have this chicken coop and there's these chickens and I bought like a rainbow pack of eggs, right? And so there's different colored chickens and they lay different colored eggs and things like that. Well, we live in the desert and no matter where you live, like the joke is, what is the chicken's favorite thing to do? Die. Like, because they die for no reason at all. And so when I opened the nest boxes and I was collecting eggs and one happened to be in the nest box dead. And I don't like dealing with dead things. I don't like doing that. And so I asked my husband, I'm like, hey, when you go to work tomorrow, can you get that chicken out of the nest box and get rid of it? And he's like, sure, no problem. So the next day I go out to collect the eggs and this chicken, it looks like it had just been pushed into out of the nest box into the coop. And chickens like can't pick up other chickens, right? Like, so I'm like, what's going on with this? Like, immediately I'm like, why did he not just take the chicken? Like, why would he push it in? You notice, but I'm curious. Whereas before I would have been like, why doesn't he ever do what I ask him to do? Like,
Yeah.
why is he being lazy and not just taking the chicken? Like, why can't he just do what I asked? I would have gone there. But because of this work, I immediately got curious and I'm like, why would he push it in? It was like almost kind of funny. And I'm like, okay, like previous me would have called, why didn't you take the chicken? I asked you to take the chicken. And I was just like, that's weird. I'll just have to ask him when he gets home. It was like completely different impulse control, completely different emotional regulation. And he got home, and instead of it being like a confrontation, I was just like, hey, why did you just push the chicken into the coop instead of taking it with you? And he's like, I did take it with me. And I'm like, what? And we went and looked and we realized there were two chickens of all the chickens in the pack that looked the same. And I just forgot that fact. And it just happened to be that those two chickens died a day apart. And so
Wow.
I tell that story as like an ADHD related thing because it's just, I'm shocked how much my impulse control through coaching has improved. I'm shocked how much my emotional regulation has improved because before I just thought thoughts were happening to me and I was just feeling feelings immediately. But yeah, that was a long chat there. And I saw you write down some things, Stephanie. What did you have?
Yes. And you may have seen my reaction because where you were saying your first reaction is to yell, impulse control, all of those things. I was the exact same way until finding, your thought creates your feelings, creates your actions. And what a mind-blowing thought that was to be told, hey, you can just like pick something different to think, which to someone who's new to coaching is very like, okay, make me think
Sure.
something new. Sure. Okay. It's that easy. But it's that simple where you can choose a different emotion because of what you're thinking. And instead of choosing anger, you can go to a different emotion. And the impulse control, so true for me as well. I didn't realize until getting diagnosed that a lot of that was related to the ADHD. Um, we are very like jumping to not necessarily jumping to conclusions. You can cut that out. We're very what am I trying to say here?
I know I
We all
jump to
have
conclusions.
what?
I know
Yeah.
I used to jump to conclusions all the time.
Yes. Well, and me too. And of course I'm not perfect. This doesn't ever go away. I don't think it, but it's severely decreased for me because just like you can turn that into curiosity and not immediately jump to angry. You can ask questions and get curious about it. And it's kind of funny. I always felt like I was a victim of my own brain. I was at the mercy of whatever my brain just decided to do. That's what we were going to do or think or feel. And through coaching, just blew my mind that that's not actually the case at all. And it's not, you're not a victim of your circumstances, you know, what's happening around you. It's all in your brain and you can choose something different. But oh my gosh, the way that that has shown up in my own life too, even without all the additional wonderful valuable things that we've learned, just the ability to know I can choose something different and create something totally new, that in itself was worth all of the money for certification in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just wanted to share that with you guys about certification because I just want you to understand, like, we're all in. Like, we took that step to invest in our knowledge and in ourselves, and it changed. Like, both of us were seeking to change, right? You were seeking to change for your daughter. You were seeing the value. I was being told, like, if you think this is good, like, just wait. And so we were willing to make that investment. And the investment to work with us is just so much less. And I don't mean that to be like a selling point, but if you can swing investing in yourself in coaching, if it's not with us, do it with someone. Do it with someone that understands how to teach you to work on your thinking and change your feelings and help you to take the action that you want to take or stop certain actions that you don't want to take. Like the yelling, for example. I didn't want to do that. I just felt like I had to. I didn't feel like I had a choice.
Yeah.
And whatever that is for you, I work with my clients on so many different things, but also like in building that, like, what do you need? Do you need structure? Do you need to stop procrastinating? Do you need help with organization? Don't suffer alone. Like Stephanie is so smart to have like gone, okay, I feel like I need to do this before I start a family. Like here we've started, but let me get started on this before we start a family. Because the reason I do what I do, the reason I'm sitting here having this conversation with Stephanie and putting it on the internet, which is terrifying, you guys, just so you know. And I'm showing up here every week. And you know why? It's because you guys comment things like, that so helped me. Thank you. You see me on here and you book a consult with me and you get on the consult and I can't tell you how many people tell me they're like, oh, you're real. What were you expecting? So I finally had to ask somebody, I'm like, why do people keep saying that? And they're used to like watching YouTube and like, you know, they think of the people on YouTube as like actresses or whatever, or on the podcast if you're listening to the podcast. But I just wanted to share all this, like the investment that we've made just to say, like, don't suffer through. I really felt like, yes, I had a good life. Yes, I had everything I needed, but I was just suffering. And I was like emotionally suffering. I had severe anxiety. I had insomnia. I didn't feel like I was following through on the things that I wanted to follow through on in my life. I just like always felt like I should be doing something. Like there was just no peace. There was no peace. There was no calm. There wasn't room for happiness. I just did a podcast. I think it was the last one before this one, and it was about adding back joy. And that's what I work with my clients. Like once I get them all set, I'm like, okay, we're going, we're organized, we're structured, we've got things going the way we want them going. Now, how do we add joy back into your life? And they're ready at that point. But when they come to me, they're overwhelmed and they're anxious. And I know exactly how they feel. Because if I could have had a coach like all those years ago, I would have got one immediately. I would have done what Stephanie did, but I didn't even know it was a thing until until like 6 years ago. I think I heard of Mel Robbins, and it was when she was first on TV, like as a life coach, and not her show. This was like way before that. And I'm like, life coach? That's weird. What's that? And now I hear her talk about that. And she's like, I was a life coach before people had any idea what it was. And now ADHD coaching, and people are like, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know you could have an ADHD coach, or they don't know what it means. So yeah, what's been your experience with that, Stephanie?
Yeah, I think for myself and for my clients, it, like you said, it is an investment in yourself and it's so valuable even to just look at yourself where you are now with your own emotions and your own life and how you function. Even if you could say, what if in 6 weeks from now, I could be just 10% closer to where I want to be, or 10% less anxious, or 10% more authentic and less perfectionistic, it would be worth it. And it was worth it for me to say, I just want to be better at better at regulating my own emotions for my daughter. And coaching really is, I think, similar to therapy in that you get out of it what you put into it. It's not a magic fix. It's not going to solve all your problems. But if you do the things, do the exercises, you come ready and open and willing to be vulnerable, gosh, it will change your life like it's changed both of our lives. I think you and I both, we love serving people. That's the most fun part of it, is like meeting people and seeing what's going on in your life and how can I help you. Helping people is like the most fun of the whole thing, to me anyway. And even if you could just be 10% better, wouldn't it be worth it? Because gosh, it was for me.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was listening to a book this morning, and it was from Donald Miller, and I think it was like the Story Brand or something like that. And he was saying, sorry, my visual timer just went off, but he was saying in that book, like, we want to be helpers as humans. And I really want to put something together at some point that helps people get to the point that they're helping. Because sometimes with our ADHD and the overwhelm that comes with it and the anxiety, we're just trying to manage ourselves. We're just trying to like stay above the water, basically. Like, in back to lifeguarding, Mr. Worthington, that was like our coach for lifeguarding, would make us take weights and hold them in the water. So you're in the deep end, and you'd have to take a weight and you'd hold it. And basically what he was doing, he's working on our treading. And so I can tread like nobody's business. So I was like, I took the heaviest weight. And so my point to that is that's what life felt like. Like I was being weighted down, and I was just barely keeping my head above the water. And it's really hard to serve in the way that we are drawn to serve when you feel like your life's a mess. And it wasn't, notice for me, it was like a progression. Like I had to like get coached and start cleaning things up there, and then certification. And then I was like, I can do this. And then I got off my first coaching call, and I was like, this is it. Like, this is how I help people. This is amazing. I was like so giddy and so happy. And then I went on to a volunteer coach, and I stopped counting volunteering coaching at like 200 hours. And it was so fun. And I was like working with people all over the world. And I say this all to like, it almost sounds like we're like, you guys get coached, like not get coached, but get certified. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying like there is such value here. And I think we're both very passionate about it. And what I'm going to do is in the description or in the show notes, I'm going to put the link that for Stephanie, if you'd like to work with Stephanie. I'm going to put the link if you'd like to work with me. If neither of us are your exact fit, go find someone. Don't suffer alone. Get help. Even if it's like a group type situation like I have or like other people have, just don't suffer alone. Like, you don't have to do it alone. I just did a podcast here recently that it said I should be able to do it myself. That was my thought for so many years. I should be able to do, and I hear it from my clients, should be able to do this myself. Other people don't have to do this. Other people are keeping their houses clean and their cars clean, and they look fine and they're put together. I shouldn't have to get help. And the fact was I needed help. And I'm saying this all to say, like, if you are suffering, if you are drowning, get the help. You deserve it. And Stephanie, do
Yes.
you have anything in closing?
Yeah, just very true to what you were saying. When we're in our own crap and in our own minds feeling, like you said, it's exhausting to try and just keep our heads above water. But because when we do that, we're so focused on ourselves because we have nothing else to give to
Yeah.
anybody else. I think that also holds us back from living a life like we probably want to have, a more authentic life, one centered around our family or career or just seeing the world, just anything like that. When it takes up so much time to be so self-aware, but in a negative way, in a way that's all about me, it's exhausting. And gosh, this whole journey has led me to live a more authentic life to who I really am. And I completely agree with you. If it's not us, go find someone. You really don't have to suffer. You really can have a totally different outlook on your emotions and your ADHD brain, and just go find someone who fits you. It really will change your life if you let it.
And I want you guys to understand we're reflecting our experience, and we're reflecting the experience that we see from our clients, and we are not in any way calling you selfish. What we're saying is when you suffer in any kind of way, whether it's anxiety or overwhelm or whatever you're feeling feels like it's holding you down, you have no choice but to focus on yourself. And you're like, but I am loving my partner, and I am taking care of my kids. And it's like, you are, but what you don't know is there's a whole nother level. Like, once you're not just trying to survive, there's just a whole nother level beyond that. But I am so excited that Stephanie was able to come back for this conversation again, which I really appreciate, because I just get really passionate about these things. And Stephanie, you talked about authenticity, and I've been hearing so much about that lately. And what I notice is when we have these interview calls, when I like have the calls where I bring on my clients, or I bring on like some sort of expert, or like bring on another coach, that's when I'm truly me. And I think people see through, like when I'm teaching, they're like, okay, I see her passion. I see that she cares. I see that she understands me. But it's these calls where it's like more authentic. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's I think especially when we are so used to masking ourselves, and maybe less so for us because we're, we're actively doing the work, but it's very easy to be authentic when you relate so much to someone and what they're going through. And I don't have to pretend to be somebody else because this person totally gets it and experiences all of the same weird, quirky things that I thought were just me. And yeah, I completely agree. And I've really enjoyed talking with you. Um, it's been so great and I've learned so much from you. So I really appreciate you having me on again to get this interview um, finalized. And yeah, I appreciate you. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for agreeing to it and for coming back. Where can people find you, Stephanie?
You can find me at stephaniemckeon.com. So my name is spelled very standard, Stephanie. And my last name is Mckeon. M like Michael at the beginning, M like Nancy at the end.com. And then my Instagram is my name, stephaniemckeon.coach. Funny enough, there's actually an actress in, I think she's Irish, who has the same name as me. And so if you end up on the actress's pages, that is not me. I'm not an actress. And it's spelled the same way too. But so stephaniemckeon.coach on Instagram.
Oh, how funny. If you Google my name, which is spelled Mande, which is really unusual, and then John is very common, John. But if you Google my name, you'll get some man in Africa. Like,
That's so
so,
random.
but I've been here long enough that if I've learned to thrive with ADHD everywhere. And if you Google my name, like a lot of my videos and podcasts and blog posts and stuff will come up. But we're easy to find, you guys. If you want to connect with us, we would love that. Leave a comment if like something here resonated with you. We'd so appreciate that. Sometimes with YouTube and podcasting, honestly, it feels like you're talking into the void. If you can like rate on podcast and tell us if something resonated with you. I think we told a lot of very vulnerable stories here about our struggles and our failures and being on the other side of that now. But I just hope it was helpful. That's all I want from these type of episodes is I tell my people that are going to come on, I'm like, we're just looking for them to say, I see myself in you and she understands me and I'm not alone. And so that's the purpose of these. But all right, guys, thank you for staying with us. Hopefully you were able to hold your attention to the end. And if not, that's okay. I tell my clients, and that's how I show up to coaching too. I'm like, I am going to get something out of this. I just decide ahead of time, I will always get something out of this, and it's always true. So I invite you to think about that when you come to like these podcasts or these YouTube videos, that you're going to get something of value out of it for you. All right. Anything else, Stephanie?
No, I'm just so grateful to be here. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.